Hi, rollers. How are you doing? So this was Hard Kiss, famous Ukrainian band, and I I liked the song, though I didn't really get the music video. It reminded me of Chernobyl in the beginning, but in the end, it has become, well, actually, it might be a symbol of Russian invasion, right? Though the words. Okay, so I just don't get it from the first try. I will listen to it again. This was recommended by Prometheus UA. Thank you, Prometheus. Good song, good music video, but I probably Hard Kiss is not my cup of tea. But what? But I think they are cool still. Okay, it is day what? 851 of the brutal invasion of Russia and genocide that they're committing. It's so surreal, to stream about this. If we thought of this, let's say, 3 years ago, I don't think anyone could think of this, but I'm talking about myself probably. A lot of people could think about it. A lot of people who were conscious back then already, not like me. Today, just 1.5 hours ago, already 2 hours ago, we had an amazing Free Azov stream. And today we need to work on the raffle. We need to work on donations a lot. I need to work a lot to get us to the weekly goal of $2,000, which means 200 tickets. Great news, guys. I don't know if you missed this or not, but for those who missed it, let's go to my channel, to my fundraiser report, which I've done finally not on Sunday, but on Thursday. So on the second page, there is a news that last 44K were finished by Lev Kostek. He's the Ukrainian journalist, and he works together with Chimera unit. Chimera, Death from the Sky, FPV pilots from the Steel Border Brigade, and Lev Kostek, let me show. They asked him for help too. So here's he in Twitter. He. I'm confused now. Sorry, guys. So here's Lev Kostek, 3,622 followers. He needs more engagement, I would say. So, by the way, guys, I forgot to congratulate you with the closed fundraiser. Hell yeah, we closed it. We closed bigger half of it. And then Lev Kostek joined in, the Ukrainian journalist. And he asked his audience to help, and they donated all the rest. And actually went over 100,000, the plan. So you see, it's on 107% now. So this is how it can be done. Actually, you can go over the goal, and it's just going to be some additional equipment for soldiers, or maybe some gasoline, because, unfortunately, the command is not always pouring the gasoline into the tanks. Rick has stole celebrity because he's from Donetsk, for starters. That in itself is rough. I'm not a celebrity, definitely, and I think I haven't done enough for my country, and I am no one comparing to the heroes who are now in Russian captivity, being tortured and really sacrificing their health and lives, and all of those who are defending our country. So please don't call me a celebrity. I am not one. I am just a simple citizen who is trying to help his country, and I am so fucking lucky to have you guys. Without you, it all won't be possible. You, kind people all over the world, make these results possible. Thank you, my friends. I'm just I don't know. We rollers are your biggest fans. I know. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being them. I love you guys. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay. I've been filming pretty nonstop for 2 weeks. This is like the first break I've gotten, but it's not really a break. I said it would be a break, but all I've been doing is going through all the footage, taking notes on the footage, editing the footage, and then come Monday, I start my stream schedule again. So I'm kind of skipping the break portion, but I'm keeping busy, and that's good. It's better to be busy than to be bored.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Oh, I totally agree. I cannot allow myself to be bored for the last few years at all, so I can totally relate. Okay, so last time you've been to Luhansk Oblast, right?
Yeah, no, this is the first time I've been to Luhansk. It's very difficult to get into Luhansk Oblast now, reporting on the Ukrainian side of the conflict, because like 98% of Luhansk is occupied. Very little of it is still controlled by the Ukrainians. And all of it that is controlled by the Ukrainians, these aren't like big populous cities or settlements. It's mostly just either like little patches of countryside or forest. And I went to the Serbinitsky Forest. It's also, I always pronounce it incorrectly, but it's also known as the Forest of Miracles. It's been fought over. It's near the Limon axis, and I went the Limon axis, and I went on a BMP mission with some local soldiers on Russian lines. But that wasn't all I did in the last 2 weeks. I also filmed some captured Russian T-80s. I filmed with FPV crews. I filmed with artillery crews on the Volchansk axis. I filmed with Baba Yaga teams. Some fixed-wing drone aircraft on the Chasiv Yar axis. I've been keeping myself busy.
Next question from USA. How can average citizens from around the world help the soldiers at the front who don't have a media team? Interesting.
That don't have a media team. See, this is the difficulty. Is I was talking about this on the road recently, and I was watching all these different billboards because the military sometimes will advertise with billboards or advertise with video. And I was like, Azov, third assault, Azov, third assault, Azov, third assault. And I was thinking, like, I don't think I've ever seen a 40-second billboard, but I meant the 40-second, and those are great guys. I don't think I've ever seen a billboard for the 56th or 54th or any of these guys that are super cool. And in fact, when I was with the 54th, they were telling me how they wanted fundraising because they had to take their drone company and expand it. And through expanding it, they needed everything because now that they had more people, they needed more gear for literally everything. And they were looking for fundraising, but they don't have the clout. They don't have people around the corner like calling to get into the 56th or the 54th or any of these units that are less known, but also desperately need resources. Now, the main thing these units the main way they can be helped is on a scale that is not through us, which is on the national level, the United States providing more aid, or the government of Ukraine being able to sign more contracts, doing more deals with companies like Rheinmetall that can get a more sustained flow. Because the problem with a lot of these fundraisers, and I'm not mocking any fundraiser, is it's going to come with public attention, right? Sometimes you're going to be able to get 10,000, 5,000. Maybe there's a recent victory. Maybe there's a surge in attention. Maybe the algorithm changes and you're able to bring in a new wave of support. But then the tempo comes down low again. And maybe the mood goes down low again. And the people are maybe less willing to donate on another day. And it's not a consistency that would bode itself for like a solid support base being stable. As for donating directly to units, I would just say personally, if you're going to donate to a unit, what I try to do, and I'm not, as a journalist, of course, like I can't advertise any specific unit, but what I would say would make sense to me is look for units that don't have a gigantic media team. Look for units that when you look at their fundraising video, their camera's shaking a little bit, it's off their phone, it's not like with 360 view and HD 4K. Look for the units that are doing their best to make what they have work, and not the ones that already have all the resources they probably need at the moment, or that they have the vast majority of the resources they need at the moment. Because most of the people that come out and donate are going to go straight to the people who come out first in the search algorithm, the first ones they see on Twitter, the ones that have the media professionals got to put their teams out there, put their faces out there. Look for those smaller guys. As for like what way I could point you towards, I mean, all I'm going to do is like, hey, the 54th, they told me that they need help fundraising for their drone teams. So if anybody wants to help them, I'm sure they would appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Good advice. And guys, if you want to actually support Dylan, his link tree is in the description of this stream and also his website. On his website, you can make a donation. You can see information about him. He's Dylan, can I call you a war journalist?
Yeah, I think you can call me a war journalist at this point.
War journalist, yeah. And anyway, on the ground journalist. He goes there on the front line. He's a very brave man. I'm, for example, a chicken shit, and I never went there yet. And but I'm planning to do this this July. Gonna be a good experience for me. Gonna go there with Greg Terry. Well, I'm announcing this for months. I'm tired of this. I just need to go there. Anyway, guys, please support Dylan because I think he is amazing. And thank you for your work, Dylan. Okay, yes. Dylan, do you know Jana?
I think I might have seen them on social media, but I don't think I've met them ever before in person.
Yeah, I'm from Project Constantine. We spoke on Twitter, but you didn't know it was me because I was speaking as Project Constantine. You
okay. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Next one is from Zlauri Out. Dylan, I'm the past when asked one of the things Ukrainians need most. You said demining equipment to help Ukraine clear the way to get south to Crimea. Would you say that is still the case? Also wondering, did you hear about Jake Bro's birthday fundraiser?
Jake Bro's birthday fundraiser kind of blew me out of the water because it came out of nowhere. It just kind of he didn't like build it up as some like, hey guys, we're gonna do the biggest fundraiser. He just fundraised, and I think there was a bunch of conditions that created the perfect storm. He had his own pre-existing audience. People generally at the time knew that Ukraine was going through pretty bad shortages and that the aid hadn't been, even if it had been sent, it hadn't been come over yet. And that was always my problem with the aid was I knew that eventually someone was going to get scared or spooked by some event in Ukraine and it would spur them into action. But by the time they'd be spurred into action, it might be too late. And that was the thing that always scared me about the Republicans playing footsie with abandoning the Ukrainians. But I think that that specific moment where people wanted to help because they knew of the shortages, plus his birthday and the fundraiser, it just all kind of hit with the algorithm, and he just did a beautiful thing there. As for demining equipment, yeah, I still think it's important. The thing that's important about demining equipment is this is going to be important for the next 80 to 100 years. 1/3 of the country is covered in mines and bombs. When I talk to deminers, they talk about a process that will take decades upon decades upon decades upon decades. So from my view, when it comes to demining equipment, there is never a bad time to send over demining equipment to Ukraine because Ukraine is going to need demining equipment for the rest of our natural lives. And so as long as that is the case, I still think it is important. It also has a military benefit of being able to be used to clear out the way if they want to take back their territory. If Ukraine wants to deoccupy its territory, it's going to have to demine some territories as well. So it's helpful from an emergency services perspective because CESU needs it. And I mean, a lot of times units can fundraise. Civilian workers, I've heard a mixed story. I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but I've heard stories of commanders not wanting their deminers to fundraise because if they fundraise, that can make the commanders look bad, and the commanders do not want to look bad, and so it's also treated in a different way. And so I've heard that it's not as bad as it used to be, but that was a problem earlier in the war that really frustrated me. So demining equipment is still something I would push people towards. It doesn't have the same strategic immediate necessity as it did during the counteroffensive, but it's going to be a necessity for basically forever.
Yeah. Thank you. Action This Day asks, there are 1,000 of tanks, M113 vehicles in U.S. sitting in storage. What organization or individual can lead an effort to get surplus weapons to Ukraine?
I mean, it's something that's going to I think it's going to have to probably be led from Congress. It's going to have to be led from a legislative angle, because there are plenty of like Ukrainian Americans and pro-Ukrainian Americans who can like yell and shout. And I mean, there are protesters that have been outside the DC Capitol every day protesting in favor of sending aid to Ukraine. I've met them. They're great people. They want to bring attention to Ukraine's struggle. It's really good guys. But they're not the ones that go there and say, okay, send the weapons. It has to be congressionally approved. Now, there are other workarounds you could find for like short-term fixes and stuff. But at the end of the day, if you want the flow that's necessary for Ukraine to win, it's going to have to be congressionally approved. So this is going to have to be legislation sponsored by congressmen. And sometimes this pressure, by the way, can go around the president of the United States. When the first tranche of aid came to Ukraine in 2019, with the lethal aid, the javelins, that was not Trump's initiative. That was Congress's initiative that passed with a veto-proof majority, so he couldn't do anything. That's why he got impeached, is because when he tried to block it, he did something that was unconstitutional. And so if Congress acts, it might not even necessarily matter who is in the White House. And it could also mean if an initiative is building steam, let's say there's an initiative to say, encourage the Biden administration to allow Ukraine to strike air bases with attack. This type of stuff can build pressure on the American government. Mike Johnson, funnily enough, after dragging his feet for so long, has started to say that it is not the United States' place to micromanage the war in Ukraine, and the Biden administration needs to take his hands off the wheel a little bit, which is funny because the main thing he could have done to support Ukraine outside of speaking and yapping would have been, prodding his party in the back after 6 months of delays that cost lives. But still, it just shows this. It has to start in Congress. So having legislators start initiatives to say, hey, we want $5 billion allocated for this specific capability that could be helpful, or these capabilities that the Ukrainians have come to us and told us that they need. But yes, it has. If you're asking where does this need to start, it has to start in Congress.
Next question. That was a good one, by the way. Great.
I want to know what shampoo and conditioner Dylan uses.
Whatever I can get my hands on. Usually it's back in the States when I was, it wasn't just whatever was on the shelf. It was Dove, and I like to use something, I forget the brand, but I can, if you're really curious, I can send you a bottle of it. But it's something like mixed with honey, and I like the smell tremendously.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Got it. When you were speaking about that, your camera got blurred very much, and when you stopped, it focused again.
Yeah, it was like, this is OPSEC, can't talk about shampoo and conditioner.
What is
Shut
happening?
Shut it down. I can't release the state secrets.
Yeah. Hey, Dylan, first of all, thank you for your service. This one is from Benzo Baby. How would you say this tour has shaped you, and do you feel hopeful for the future? Is there anything we can do to help further?
He says this tour. Does he mean just all my time in Ukraine, or this one specifically?
I think this one specific, because I was specifying that you just came back from one.
I'll just assume he means like this, because a tour traditionally is like a 5 to 8 month period, and so I would assume that he's talking about just this, the general last 5 months or 6 months I've been, last period I've been in the country. I would say when I went to the stabilization point, that had a pretty big effect on me, because filming at a stabilization point is strange as a journalist, because I don't really hope for content. It's very strange because I know what I need to film to show, but I don't want anyone to go through the doors, because you don't know what's going to happen. And I've heard a lot of stories of people going to stabilization points on a quiet part of the front for 24 hours, and then they sleep overnight and they get nothing. But within 10 minutes of me getting to stabilization point, I can't say the location for OPSEC reasons, but it was in Donetsk. It was in the Donetsk region. Within 10 minutes, we had the first injury come in. And within an hour of that, we had the next. And we had over the 24-hour period we were there, we had 5 people come through, which it wasn't like a wave of people, but it meant that every few hours, including when I was sleeping, I was woken up with injuries. And I think just the cycle of violence, and the cycle of treated violence, or the cycle of just helping and trying to save lives and stabilize people during the most critical part. I mean, this is the critical point where you have to, get this person stabilized before they can get to a bigger hospital, bigger medical institution. Just the amount of weight on the shoulders of these people who work on destabilization points is immense. The hours that they have to put themselves, definitely when their part of the front becomes incredibly active, is incredible. The hours I've heard of like being awake for 48, 60 hours at a time, passing out for a few, waking back up because now somebody else is in there. And that's how combat goes. And that's how the Russians fight. It's by overwhelming pressure to the point of breaking everything. And that's also true for them. And so just seeing person after person after person after person in front of you, treating them, having them shake on your table in pain, sending them away, and having no clue how the vast majority of them did after you saw them off. I mean, it must leave the mind boggling. And once the war's over, when this is all said and done, are they going to be thinking back for the rest of their lives like, oh, that one guy, Dimitro I met, who, lost his leg and he was in really bad condition. Did he make it? Is he going to go research that? Is that something he's going to be like bothered with for the rest of his life? That's something that really left a big impact on me. Was just like, it became a cycle, a very clearly identifiable cycle after 24 hours there. It's like they arrive, you strip them, you identify their injuries, you treat them, you give them whatever you can for pain, send them on the way in the car off to hospital within 15 to 20 minutes. And just that again and again and again. The cycle, I guess after a while would just numb you. But yeah, that had a big impact on me, this cycle.
Yeah, I actually have a question from that, because I'm editing some video from Pete from his body cam where he was at a stabilization point in Chasov Yar, and we can say it because Chasov Yar is no longer, it's temporarily been occupied now. But they didn't have pain medication for the guys, and you just hear the screams. So because the original stabilization point got bombed and they had a shortage of supplies. So is that something where you look at these things and you look at the wounds you've seen and the people you've seen and the things you've heard and you're like, how am I going to forget this? Or how do I cope with this in a way? Is that something that you struggle with, or have you kind of found a coping mechanism?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I really want to talk about me. I don't want to make this about me. I'll answer a little bit of it, but I want to say something first, because you said something about the screams. Something that really stuck with me was I didn't really get much screaming. I got a lot more shaking. People shaking on the table. And I remember the only time I can remember that I shook like that is when I got a really like deep dark tattoo on a really like bad part of my back, where like it's like it's like where the skin is the thinnest and the bone starts to protrude out. So when people get tattoos here, it's some of the worst experiences. These were the first places I got tattoos because I was a moron. But the shaking left an impact on me. And when I talked to the doctor about screaming, because there was a little bit of screaming, he said, sometimes the screaming is good because then you know where it hurts. Because then when you're grabbing for the wounds and you hear, then you know, oh, okay, there it is. There's metal probably embedded here. We need to find the hole. And then that can speed up the process. But to them, it was so normalized. They had dealt with it for so much. They had become a gear in this medical cycle for so long that it was just part and parcel of the trade. And so it became like, how can we turn their pain into an asset to save their life? Which is a weird thing to say out loud, but that is kind of the purpose of pain, isn't it? Pain is here, it's bad. It's
you know there's something wrong.
It's a giant alarm. And so while for us, pain is something to be terrified of, it's to be horrified of, for the doctor and for them, pain turned into an asset to try to save their life. As for me and how do I deal with it, I don't know. I just I try to I try to view it from as many perspectives as possible, and I think that if I try to understand it as much as I can, understanding it is a lot of dealing with fear, and it's the same way I've looked about the idea of dying. It's the same way I've looked about a lot of the horrific ways of this war. Is that I feel like if I understand it and I let that information pass through me, then maybe I can deal with it. Now that isn't perfect, because having to absorb that information in the first place, it can be some pretty horrifying truths or horrifying things that you see. But that's, the way that I've tried to deal with it is just if I push it back, I feel that all I'm going to do is I'm going to build it up in my head and make it a worse problem. And so I just try to allow these things to flow through me. But you need breaks. I know so many journalists in this country that they get to a point where they just can't anymore. They shut down. And I keep telling some guys I know one person who's been like in comatose for almost like 3 years now with barely any break. Spanish journalist is crazy. And I'm like, you can't keep doing this. You got to give yourself some break or you're going to go crazy. And you start to see it affect people. And so time with family was certainly important for me. If I hadn't gone back to the United States for Christmas and saw my grandparents, I don't know how I would have dealt with it. So I would say proper rest and recovery, and trying to understand what I'm looking at, I think has helped me most, and not hide from it, but understand it.
Another question. John Moy, 8276. Dylan, what's the talk of the ground about rotation and recruiting?
On the ground talk about rotation and recruiting. The big question is there's like a social unease about the conversation about draft dodging and people participating in draft dodging. People feel the people on the front don't like the idea, especially those. Not all of those got picked, but a lot of those don't like the idea that there are those who are staying way away from the violence and are able to just separate themselves from it and benefit from the security that they're not contributing to. There are others that feel differently and are like, I don't really know if I want somebody here who isn't super passionate about being here. And everybody makes their own decision. And they think like, I know what this fighting takes. This isn't for everybody. This type of fight. There are some people that if they came here, they'd break down immediately. I remember talking to one Ukrainian psychologist. He was working with an artillery unit with the M777 howitzers, about this one guy who said to him, I want to fight. I want to do my job. I want to liberate my home. But when the firing starts, I cannot control my body. And if that is true for some people, then it makes sense that they would want to stay away from violence. But there is an undercurrent conversation about this that is a real sticking point, and it's part of the reason I think it is just the general conversation around mobilization is very tense right now in Ukrainian society. But if you poll people, the data still states that the Ukrainians want to continue fighting. And if they want to continue fighting, they have to do what's necessary to continue fighting. Because if not, then you have to acknowledge that fact. If it's gotten to a point where you can't continue fighting, then you have to acknowledge. But nobody says that because nobody wants to accept it. Nobody wants that. Everybody wants to fight against that future, and they want to continue defending their country as long as is necessary. And so if that's the case, then this conversation has to be had, and it has to be settled from a legislative angle.
The one from Pat Chellen. Do you think the latest with North Korea and Vietnam will escalate the war on a global scale?
I think the South Koreans are about to show some ferocity on the foreign stage that we haven't seen in a very long time. I think that the South Koreans have the Russians by the balls, figuratively and almost literally, because it's so tight. Because they put them in a position where no matter what they do, they lose. Because on one hand, from the proposal that the South Korean government's making, and I talked about this proposal before they even said it, because immediately I knew what was going to happen, because it just made too much sense. If the North Koreans are to continue to supply the Russians from their stockpiles, because now they've done it for a while, they're not going to endlessly do it. They're a starving junta based upon monarchy, communism, corruption, or the most unstable of foundations you can imagine. The most ridiculous, fantastical, Looney Tune ass regime you can imagine on the planet. It's right there. it can't endlessly supply the largest war in the world when it's not getting some benefit. So it needs something. But the things it wants, number one, it's going to want things like being able to have its laborers go to Russia to bring in hard currency. That's something that Russia benefits from, because then they get laborers, foreign laborers, when they have a labor shortage. The North Korean gets import currency that they can use to evade sanctions. That's one benefit they can trade. But what the North Koreans want is long-range targeting technology. What the Russians have threatened to give them is long-range targeting technology. What the South Koreans don't want them to have is offensive weapons that can be used against them, like, i.e., long-range targeting technology. When they're strapping nuclear weapons to the end of it that can wipe out cities, not only in South Korea, but in Japan, in Guam, that is the United States territory, or West Coast America. They have increased the range of their missiles. They have increased it. This isn't like 2007 anymore. North Korea is a nuclear armed power, and they have all these sanctions placed upon them, but Russia is now helping them to evade them. They've been helping them for years, but in a much smaller window, much more under the radar, unmarked Russian transport ships bringing in limousines for the Kim regime, and you're bringing in all of the luxury goods so they can enjoy the comfort of the West while hating every bit about it. Jealousy? I don't know. It doesn't matter. What does matter, though, is if the North Koreans continue this path with the Russians, the South Koreans are going to start sending high-quality 155 millimeter shells to Ukraine in large number, which is NATO standard. And in Europe, there are a ton of guns that fire that standard, including guns that Ukraine has imported, like the M77 howitzer, which I've embedded with, and a bunch of other Western guns provided by the French, provided by I think the Danish, even by a ton of different people throughout Europe. And so that specific supply that could help rebalance, to not only talk about like, oh my God, look at, hey, we've recovered from February, and now the shell disparity is still pretty bad, but I mean, at least we're not starving anymore, to, oh my goodness, we're closing the shell disparity gap. That's how you really change the landscape of the war. And they don't just provide a few of those shells. They are one of the, I think that they're second largest arm producing country in the world. I think people don't realize how significant South Korea could be for changing the landscape of the war. And they produce a lot of air defense systems that could be of great use to the Ukrainians. It's like air defense and artillery shells. These are two things they do great, and Ukraine is in desperate need of. And so when you're in Russia's position, do you keep importing these tin can ass artillery shells, you know, that, I mean, they still work, and at the end of the day, blow up, they still kill people, and no matter what, you can have the worst shell in the world. If it still kills a man, it still kills a man. It works. It helps keep their shell dominance. But are you going to take those shells and whatever else the North Koreans can roll out from the last 80 years of their repressive regime, from their old Soviet stockpiles, Chinese stockpiles, whatever it may be? So the South Koreans can give Ukraine the most up-to-date, like clean, modern produced shells that are going to have a much lower deficiency rate, that are for much more modern artillery systems that can shoot longer distances, possibly air defense systems, which then messes with a whole other part of the Russian war plan. Is it worth it for those shells? And if they say yes, well, then they have the South Korean problem. If they say no, well, then they just missed out on all that North Korean equipment that they could have had. So this really, no matter what, it's a lose-lose situation for the Russians. And for the South Koreans, if this diplomatic attempt to scare them wins, then they have to contribute nothing to back the Russians off of North Korea through deterrence, which I think would be a huge diplomatic win for the South Koreans. And if it doesn't, then they get to have a justification for removing this longstanding South Korean policy on weapons exports and send this stuff to Ukraine and have a real demonstrative strategic effect on the battlefield.
Okay, Dylan, thank you so much for being here. Yeah, it was such an awesome talk, and I really like that we addressed a lot of questions to you. Thank you for answering them. Your answers are always very, as I told you, structured and very interesting. Once again, I want to compliment you on this. Always such a pleasure to have you here. And we always say that we gotta meet here in Kyiv, and we never do that.
Well, you know what? You want to get dinner this upcoming week? I'm going to be back in Kiev.
Let's do it. I am here
Awesome.
all the time, so this upcoming week we're meeting. Awesome, Dylan.
Awesome.
Then
See you then.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to me for this little bit of time I was on here. Hope you have a good time. Good luck with the raffle, everybody. Hope you win. And if you do win, either congratulations or cycle it again. Cycle it again. Make it the most expensive patch in history. Let's see if we can achieve that.
Well,
Thanks so much for having me on. If any of you want to see my films, it's Dylan Burns TV on YouTube, dylanburns.tv if you want to donate and support my journalism work on the ground, and Dylan Burns Live for my coverage that I do like this.
Yeah, it's all in the description, guys. Go check it out. Dylan's link tree is there. Dylan, man, thank you for doing all your work. Please keep, I don't even need to ask you. You will keep pushing and helping Ukraine. So thank you, my friend. Thank you for all that. And see you next week.
See you next week, man. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye, Dylan.
Bye.
Jana,
Yes.
how was your week?
It was good.
Dylan is amazing. I always love listening to him and
Very
talking to him.
insightful. Very
Yeah,
insightful.
very,
Yeah.
very. He's very bright and very.
Yeah, I feel like I need to take notes when he talks.
Yeah, same. Like, I don't know so much in this life that Dylan knows.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. Can you repeat the part where you said that? Okay.
Yes. Okay. Also, good luck to everyone. Good luck, guys. Donation to Rick's PayPal? Yes, donation to my PayPal. Okay. Timer. Let's put it on. And okay, let's stop it. We need some music. We need some music that we're gonna be banned for, right? Like the Eye of a Tiger. Okay, something like that. This is too funny.
Dun dun dun. Dum, dum, dum.
Rise it up, back on the streets. Did my time, took my chances. It was a great blah 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 blah. I don't know the words. Sorry. I know them, but pretty bad. So, just 5 seconds left. Okay, guys, the Tiger worked, I guess, but 1, 0, and I'm pressing that wheel spin. Oh, I didn't put the 330 real quick, and pressing the spin. 230.
That's 230.
230 tickets,
okay.
From 1 to 230, and we have a winner on number 118. 118. Who was that? Let's go there and see. 118. It's Willie Matt Glass. Wow, Willie Matt Glass. Congratulations. I hope you're there in the chat. Willie Matt Glass, are you taking it? Better Willie Matt Glass. Come on.
Willie Matt Glass.
Good voice, by the way.
Thank you.
Congrats, Willie. Willie, why aren't you messaging us? Maybe you're hiding.
Here.
Maybe. I think Willie is here because he messaged. Yeah, Willie, you're the winner. Whoop, whoop. Yeah, Willie. Whoop, whoop. Congratulations, Willie. Willamette Glass says, thanks. So you're taking it. I will take it. Amazing, Willie. I'm sending it to you. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for all the gifted memberships today. All the super chats, yeah. And I also want to thank you for the activity in the chat, for all the questions. It's very good. And
okay, but I am going to go to bed.
Just go.
You can stay.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Jana. I was happy to see you. Live long and prosper, my friend.
Bye.
Good night. Okay, guys. I finally need to finish it. Thank you so much for everything you do for Ukraine. We will win this war eventually. I am 100% sure. Please stay strong together with us. I send you hugs. And I just want to celebrate another day of living. Have you heard this one? Some awesome funk from 70s, I think. Might be newer than that one. Anyway. Much love to you all, guys. I know that you won't be silent. And that you stand with Ukraine. See some of you in Kyiv this summer. Some of you already super soon. And Slava Ukraine. Thank you, guys. Live long and prosper. Thank you for watching, guys. Please like this video, leave any comment under it, and subscribe if you haven't yet. You can also check the previous part, and you can become a member on my Buy Me a Coffee to support my work here. Thank you, and live long and prosper.